July 1944, Yokosuka Naval Arsenal, Tokyo Bay. Smoke hung low over the water, and inside the naval workshops, Commander Tishi Nakamura stood beside a row of weary engineers, each staring at a captured American M1 Garand laid bare on the table before them. Outside, air raid sirens echoed from the distance as Tokyo burned again. Inside, Japan's last attempt to challenge the United States, technological dominance had just begun. The M1 Garand represented everything Imperial Japan lacked: mass production, precision machining, and a national industry untouched by blockade or firebomb. It was semi-automatic, self-loading, and brutally efficient. Each American infantryman carried 8 rounds that could be fired in seconds. Each Japanese soldier still fought with a 5-shot, manually operated Arisaka that had changed little since 1905. The mathematics were unforgiving. For every Japanese rifle produced, America built 25. United States factories rolled out more than 5 million Garands before war's end. Japan, struggling beneath shortages of steel, fuel, and trained labor, barely kept its own arsenals alive. Still, Commander Nakamura was ordered to copy the American weapon, bolt for bolt, spring for spring. The new design would be called the Type 4 rifle, a weapon meant to restore balance in a war already lost. Engineers disassembled their only Garand under dim light, measuring each component by hand. They lacked proper alloys and struggled to reproduce even the simplest parts. When the first prototype fired, the receiver cracked. When the second was finished, it jammed before cycling a single round. By early 1945, Japan had lost most of its aluminum, its chromium, and its oil. Factories worked by candlelight as Allied bombers erased cities and rail lines alike. The Americans, meanwhile, had perfected the art of industrial warfare. At Springfield and Winchester, Garands rolled off assembly lines in perfect rhythm, one every 38 seconds. In contrast, Japan's arsenals still relied on skilled hands instead of machines. Each rifle was a handmade relic produced by a nation that could no longer supply itself with ammunition. Nakamura's team tried replacing scarce gas cylinders with wooden mock-ups to test the mechanism. They melted down old naval shells to make receiver steel and recycled aircraft springs to fashion bolts. Yet each test ended the same way: misfires, jams, cracked barrels. Even the ammunition differed. Japan's 7.7 cartridges were rimmed, incompatible with Garand magazines. To solve that, engineers redesigned the magazine to feed from 10 rounds loaded by hand, not clip. This slowed the weapon and defeated the very advantage the Americans enjoyed. Still, they pressed on, convinced that spirit could replace material strength. The Emperor's broadcast called for one last decisive victory, but none would come. By spring 1945, Yokosuka Arsenal managed to assemble fewer than 200 functioning Type 4 rifles. None ever reached the front lines. The Americans were already at Okinawa. U.S. Marines armed with Garands and automatic weapons advanced through tunnels defended by soldiers using rifles older than their fathers. In battle reports, Japanese officers wrote bitterly, "Bullets are faster than spirit." The words captured the truth their leaders refused to face. The Type 4 existed only as a desperate echo of industrial defeat. When the Emperor finally announced surrender on August 15, 1945, most unfinished rifles were hidden, destroyed, or confiscated by Allied troops. American ordnance teams later studied them in astonishment. The design was ingenious in theory but crude in execution: uneven welds, soft steel, fragile stocks. They concluded the weapon could never have been mass-produced under Japan's wartime conditions. It required tools, metals, and precision that the empire no longer possessed. The story of the Type 4 rifle is not one of failure in engineering, but of inevitability. It symbolizes how courage and discipline cannot substitute for industry and resources. For every ton of steel Japan smelted, America produced 100. For every hour of work, U.S. factories outbuilt an entire Japanese arsenal. Even before the first Type 4 was finished, the war's outcome was written in assembly lines and freight yards. Modern war had become a contest of production, not spirit. When peace returned, the surviving rifles were collected, shipped to the United States, and studied as historical curiosities. Today, only a handful remain in museums, silent reminders of what desperation can create. Each Type 4 carries the marks of a nation, fighting a battle it could never win. Every rough weld, every hand-carved part tells the story of men who labored in futility beneath collapsing walls and falling bombs. The Americans had fought with technology, born of democracy and industry. The Japanese had fought with conviction, born of obedience and sacrifice. In the end, the rifle became a lesson carved in steel. That no matter the bravery of soldiers, war is ultimately decided by the factories that supply them. The Type 4 never fired in anger. Yet it speaks volumes about the tragedy of a nation that tried to engineer victory from ruin. If you found this story as haunting as the echoes of a battlefield long fallen silent, then subscribe to World War II Memoirs, where every weapon, every soldier, and every forgotten story of the Second World War is brought back to life. Join us as we uncover the hidden chapters of history, one memoir at a time. Like, share, and turn on notifications, so you never miss the next forgotten story of courage, tragedy, and survival from the war that changed the world.